Welcome class back to Chapter 3, Working with Text in CSS. This video is going to cover Lesson 2, Create a Cascading Style Sheet and Apply, Edit, and Add Rules. So CSS, what is CSS? It's made up a set of formatting attributes called rules, which define the formatting attributes for page content. Style sheets are classified by where the code is stored. So we have three ways that we can go ahead and create CSS rules. The preferred way is number 1, saved in a separate file, an external style sheet, so a file that ends in .css. Number 2, as part of the head content of an individual web page. These are referred to as internal styles or embedded or page styles. Or third, and the least preferred way, is as part of the body of the HTML code, or what we call inline styles. So what we're going to be coding in our book is external styles. So if we look at our current file layout, or our files panel, we'll notice that we already have two CSS files. We have a boilerplate.css, which we will never edit, and then we have su_styles. And so if we just open this file right now, you'll see that there are CSS rules. So let's look at line 6. This is image, object, embed, and video. And the rule that is there for those 4 selectors is that max width of 100%. Okay, and we'll get into kind of digging through the anatomy of a CSS rule here in a later slide. But all of these styles here at the top are what we call global. Okay, global meaning Dreamweaver designs for the smartphone first, and then it starts to do media queries. So media queries, and this one is for a tablet. So these are the rules that change or modify for a tablet view of the website. And if we continue down, we have another media query, and this is what you would have for a desktop layout. And we'll dig into these more as we start to look at Stripe and Umbrella a little deeper. So CSS rules are also classified by their type. So a class type can be used to format any element, and these are the ones that you will see with periods in front of them. So this one right here, fluid, is one we'll be working with, and I actually had you code this in Chapter 2 when I had you code fluid space intro underscore paragraph. So these are classes, and these classes can be applied to many elements. An ID type and a tag type are used to redefine an HTML tag. IDs can only be used once, whereas classes can be used more than once. And a compound type is used to format a selection. So let's come back here and see if we can see some compound types. Let's see here if there's any. I'm sure there are. Here is a compound type. In my line 81, it says class fluid, class nav div, space, class fluid list, class nav ul, space li. And that's what we consider a compound type. It's kind of going down the hierarchy of how things are nested in our HTML code. You can use buttons on the CSS Designer panel to create, to create styles, also to edit, and to apply rules. To add a rule, use the Sources pane to select the style sheet to which you want to add the new rule. Okay, each rule you create is added to the selected style sheet. So let's open up our CSS Designers panel and kind of apply what was just there in that particular slide. Okay, so here is the Sources panel. Okay, so if I wanted to add this style sheet or add additional style sheets, I could click on the plus symbol, create a new one, or I could attach. So let's just say that SU Styles was not attached to the SPA page. I could click on my SPA page, and I could click on the plus symbol here, and I could attach. Okay, I can also define in page. Define in page goes back to that number 2 where I said internal styles or embedded styles. And so they're defined up in the head section. So what you have selected up here in the sources pane will depend on what shows in media, and what you have selected in media will depend on what you see here in the selector side of things. And depending on what you have selected over in these 3 depends on what you see over here for properties. So the tag generated by a rule is called a selector. Okay, and a selector selects HTML elements and applies the rule to style that HTML element. Now that HTML element again can be a class, it can be an ID, it can be an HTML tag, and it can be that compound selector. There are many, many numerous benefits to using CSS. You can define a rule and then apply it to page elements. And these page elements can be on hundreds of pages. And style sheets create a more uniform look from page to page, and they generate cleaner code. They're also a way to separate the presentation from the actual structure of our website. So presentation is in CSS, so how does our page look? Structure is how is our page actually structured? Paragraphs, headings, articles, asides, those kind of things. So using style sheets separates the content itself from the way the content is presented, and that's what I was just talking about. Number 4, pages formatting with CSS styles are more compliant with current accessibility standards than those with manual formatting. And we just went through an accessibility assignment for Chapter 2. You can see the properties for a CSS rule by looking at the style sheet code. And when we look at the code, and I showed you a couple examples so far, we can see the selector and we can see the declaration. So what are they? Okay, so the selector consists of the selector's name, and the declaration is using the format property : value. So looking at this, my selector is the class, because it starts with a period, nav_ul, and my properties or my declarations are with : 100%, then there's that semicolon, margin left : 0, semicolon. Okay, so 2 declarations here for the one selector, class nav_ul. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice pages 12 through 19. Okay, so it says select the CSS button in the Properties Inspector to switch to the CSS Property Inspector shown in Figure 11. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up our Properties Inspector. And we're going to click on CSS. If the CSS Designer panel is not open, select the window on the menu bar and then select CSS Designer. So if you ever lose this and it's not over here in your Files panel group, remember Windows, and then you'll be able to find the panel that you need. So if I accidentally just close this out, I would come to Window and then back to CSS Designer. Okay, if you drag it out from here and it's in that 1-column layout, you need to take the right border and get it into a 2-column layout. Okay, so this one wants us to add CSS source button. Okay, so we're going to create a new CSS file. And also you want to be careful with all in current. If I'm on current, I'm only on the current item that is here, okay, that my selector is in. So most of the times you're going to want to be in all. Okay, so I'm going to click on plus. I'm going to create a new CSS file, and then I have to browse to my striped umbrella site. Okay, so that right here would be, for me, is on my desktop to CIS 230 and then to striped umbrella. Okay, so I'm going to type in headings, and I don't have to do the .css because the save as type is here. So I could leave that off and then click save. So it automatically puts the .css extension, and we want to keep it as link, okay, and then click OK. Now I have a new source for my spa page, and it's called headings.css. There is no media query in it, and there's no selectors as of now. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and create those. So having the source headings.css selected, we're going to create a new selector. And we're going to replace what is there. And yours might look different than mine, your default one there. I'm going to go ahead and type in list underscore headings prefixed with the period. So this is creating a class called list headings. And hit enter. You may have to hit enter more than once, okay, just depending on how it's behaving. And then you want to uncheck the show set so that we can see all the properties that we can add. Then we're going to narrow it down to text. And text we're going to add in the color. So we're going to come right over here where it says undefined and we're going to add in the color 000066 and hit enter. Okay, so it's a darker blue. The font family, we're going to choose the Sago. Font style is normal. This is on page 13, number 8. And font weight of bold. And font size of medium. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 declarations set. So if I click on the show set, I'm only going to see just those properties that are for list headings. If I uncheck the show set, this will allow me to add more if I need to add more. Okay, page 14, how do we apply this rule that was just created? Well, we're going to use the Properties Inspector to do so. So I'm going to use my arrows to collapse the CSS Designers panel. And then I'm going to highlight Massages, or I can just put my cursor there. And then it says Targeted Rule. Here I can go ahead and go to, well, where's the list underscore headings? There it is. Okay, so you can choose that. Okay, I'm going to show you this though real quickly when I do facials. I'm going to choose HTML on the Properties Inspector, and then we'll see that we have class here. Okay, it can be applied the same way. This one kind of gives us a visual of what it actually looks like. So here's list headings with the blue font and the font weight and the style and the size, as well as the font that we're using. Okay, and then so either way you can go ahead and apply. Okay, and then body treatments. Again, having my cursor in there allows me to do that because it's lumped as a paragraph. So I go ahead and go to list underscore headings. Now when I look at the code, if I look at those three, it says paragraph class equal list headings for massages, facials, and body treatments. Again, classes, as you probably already know, can be reused. Okay, next thing on page 16 is to work with our code navigator. And actually, no, before I need to do this, I need to do page 15. So let's see the power of our CSS. So if I want to update this, let me get to Design View first so you can see the visual of it. So CSS Designer, list headings. I'm going to click Show Set, and I'm going to change this from a font size of medium to large. And now you see all three of those update at one time. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do File Save All. That'll save the SPA page as well as SU underscore, or as well as headings file. Okay, now working with Code Navigator. So it says point to the massages heading. Okay, and then go Alt, click. Okay, this is going to bring up the Code Navigator. So Alt, click. Okay, and then if we click on or hover over list headings, we can actually see the 5 declarations that we just employed. And if we click on that, it'll open up our file and actually show us the CSS code. So if you feel comfortable, you know, you could have modified this from medium. So let me just take this back. So medium, and I click up here, I'm going to see the changes. If I go to extra large, and I click up here and I see the changes. So we'll change it back to large. So if you feel comfortable coding, you're welcome to go ahead and do that as well. They also want us to change this from the 066 to 33 at the end. And then click in the design view to see the update. So just a little bit of a darker blue, it almost looks black. Okay, page 18, we're going to add another selector to our headings CSS file. So we'll click on the plus symbol, and we're going to type in header 1. Now I want you to notice that I did not prefix that with a period, because we know that we have heading 1 tag, heading 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so this is just going to redefine what the H1 tag looks like. Okay, I had to hit enter there twice. Okay, so I'm going to go uncheck the show set button so I can work with properties, and then I'm going to use text. The font family is Gotham. Font size is extra large. Okay, and those are the two properties that we're going to use for H1. Now notice I can see the code right away in my split view, okay, for H1. So if I click show set, I see that I have those two. Now what they want you to do on page 19 is do the same thing for header 2 and header 3, but we're going to reduce the font size for each one. So header 2, and header 3. Okay, so now I have all of those defined. Now if we look over here, this is a header 2. Okay, so this was applied when we applied this. Okay, so a header 2 of large. Okay, and then this one was our header 1. Okay, and then this right here is also a header 2, so you can see that those are the same. Unfortunately, there are no header 3s. Well, actually, no, there is. This is a header 3 in the document, so this is going to be the font size of medium. So let's go ahead and check out the code. Okay, and we have to jump over to source code. So you want to watch these related files toolbar here, which we'll talk about in another lesson. But here's headings. If we want to see the markup, we're going to jump back to source code. Okay, so looking at this, I see that I have my header 2s and my header 1 and my header 3, but no classes were applied to them. Okay, just the styling, but nothing was added to the markup. Okay, because we're just redefining the look of what each one of these tags looks like. Okay, so do not prefix tags with periods or hashtags. Okay, so that is lesson 2. Let's do a file save all. Okay, let me know if you have any questions with regards to the CSS Designers panel. More than happy to look at those questions.